Hello students, welcome to MJC Learning. Today we will learn the 3A chapter of economics. The name of the chapter is demand analysis. Earlier in this chapter you have learned about what is the meaning of demand. What are the different concepts of demand? That is the individual demand, market demand. What is the individual demand schedule? What is the market demand schedule? What are the various factors affecting demand and what are the various types of demand? But in this part today we will learn about the law of demand. Basically, when we talk about the law of demand, we can say this law can be divided into the four parts. Whenever it comes for the examination that write the law of demand, you should write in the this manner: introduction first, statement of the law, demand schedule, and the demand curve. Now let us start with the chapter. Let us come to the first part, that is the introduction part of this law of demand. In introduction we can say that for the first time this law was given by Dr. Alfred Marshall. So who gave the law of demand? It was given by Dr. Alfred Marshall in the book called Principle of Economics. What was the name of the book? The name of the book was Principle of Economics. This book was published in the year 1890. So we have learned the three terms, that is, this law was given by Dr. Alfred Marshall in his book called Principle of Economics. This book was published in the year 1890. This law of demand is one of the important and the basic law of consumption. It is the basic law of consumption. This law explains the functional relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Now let us come to the second part, that is the statement of the law. What is the statement of the law? Let us see. The statement says that other thing being constant, higher the price of commodity, smaller is the quantity demanded. Higher the price of the commodity, smaller is the quantity demanded. And lower the price of the commodity, larger is the quantity demanded. So we can express it in terms that dx is equal to functions of px, where dx is equal to demand of commodity, nf is the functional relationship, and px is equal to price of commodity. This law basically deals that when the price increases, the demand for commodity decreases, and when the price of commodity decreases, the demand for commodity increases. This law also explains that relationship between the price and demand is inverse, because larger quantity is demanded when the price falls and the smaller quantity is demanded when the price rises. The law of demand is explained with the help of the following diagram and the schedule. See, before we start with the law, this law is based on the following assumptions. This law is based on the following assumptions. And what is the first assumption? The first assumption says that the constant level of income. What is the first assumption? Constant level of income. It means that income of the consumer should remain constant. If there is an increase or decrease in the income, then the demand of commodity is going to increase or decrease. For that purpose, the income of consumer should remain constant. For example, if the income of the consumer changes, demand tend to change even though the price remains the constant. For example, if the income increases, people will tend to buy more of the commodity even at the higher price. So the first assumption is constant level of income, that is the income of the consumer should remain constant. I hope the first assumption is clear. there should not be any change in the income of the consumer. Now let us see the second assumption. What is the second assumption? No change in the size of population, that population should not also change. The population of the country should remain constant. If there is an increase in the population, demand is going to increase, or if there is a decrease in the population, the demand is going to decrease. There should not be any change in the size and composition of the population, because a change in the population will bring about a change in the demand even if the price remains the constant. So the second assumption says that there should not be any change in the size of the population. I hope the first and the second assumption is clear. The first assumption says that constant level of income, that is the income of the consumer, should remain constant. The second assumption says that there should not be any change in the size of the population. Now let us come to the third assumption. What is the third assumption? The third assumption says that the price of substitute good remain constant. That the price of substitute goods should remain constant. Now what do you mean by substitute good? For example, tea is a substitute of coffee. Coca-Cola is a substitute of Thumbs Up and Pepsi. Like that, the third assumption says that the price of substitute goods should remain constant. If, for example, if the price of tea increases, are you getting? If the price of tea increases, then its demand will fall. If the price of tea increases, then the demand of tea is going to fall, and the demand of coffee is going to increase, because tea is a substitute of coffee. I hope the first, second and the third assumption is clear. Now let us come to the fourth assumption. What is the fourth assumption? That the price of complementary good should remain constant. Price of complementary goods should remain constant. Now you have learned in what is the types of demand. In that you have learned what is complementary good. What is complementary good? It is also known as the joint demand. When two or more goods are jointly demanded to satisfy the single need. When two or more goods are demanded jointly to satisfy the single need, it is said to be the joint or the complementary demand or the complementary good. So the fourth assumption says that the price of complementary goods should remain constant. For example, if the price of petrol increases, are you getting? If the price of petrol increases, then the demand for car is going to decrease, because car and petrol both are the complementary goods. So there should not be any change in the price of the complementary good. Are you getting? What is the fourth assumption? Fourth assumption says that the price of complementary goods should remain constant. Is this clear? Now let us come to the fifth assumption. What is the fifth assumption? That there should not be any change. No change in taste, habits, preferences, fashions, etc. What is the fifth assumption? Fifth assumption says that there should not be any change in taste, habits, preferences, fashions, etc. If there is any change in these factors like taste, habits, preferences, fashions, etc., this will lead to the change in the demand for the commodity. Now let us come to the sixth assumption. What is the sixth assumption? No expectations. No expectations about future change in price. That consumers should not expect. What is the sixth assumption? Sixth assumption says that the consumer should not expect that in future the prices is going to change, that the prices is going to decrease or increase. If Any expectations about the change in price in future will change the present demand. Are you getting that there should not be any change in the expectations about the price of the goods in future? If the consumer expects that the price will rise, if the consumer expects that the price will rise or fall in future, are you getting? If the consumer expects that the price will rise or fall in future, they will change their present demand. So if they expect that the price is going to rise or fall in future, they will change their present demand though the price remains the constant. Is this clear? The sixth assumption says that no expectations about the future change in price. Are you getting? Now let us come to the last and the seventh assumption. What is the seventh assumption? Seventh assumption says no change in taxation policy. What is the seventh assumption says? Seventh assumption says that there should not be any change in taxation policy. Example, if there is a change in income tax, suppose if there is any change in income tax, will change the disposable income of the consumer and hence it is going to affect the demand. The seventh assumption says that the government policies should remain constant. Are you getting? What does the seventh assumption says? That the government policies should not change, should remain constant. Government policies should remain constant. Taxation and the fiscal policy of government should not change. A change in income tax, for instance, may cause a change in the consumer's disposable income and hence it will affect the demand.